my channel and have not yet subscribed, please hit the subscribe button, which is right below. Please hit the subscribe button. It's right below this video, the red button. It's not a commitment. If you're new to my channel and have not yet subscribed, please hit the subscribe button, which is right below. Aries Ascendant, Sun or Moon. Saturn is currently transiting your 10th house. This is where you're going to start feeling some forward movement and some of his blessings. Saturn is going to be in square with your ruling planet, Mars, who is currently moving retrograde. You're probably not going to feel the blessings right away because Saturn is in square with your ruling planet, Mars, which is moving in retrograde motion at this time. This could signify conflicts at work with authority figures or your boss. I would highly encourage you to not start any conflicts at this time. Saturn is very powerful in his forward motion in his own sign. Even though you feel emboldened and powerful yourself, you cannot express this energy outwards. And if you do so, you're going to be met with a lot of challenge, and you're most likely going to lose this battle. So if you would like to maintain the peace at your workplace and keep your job, this is not the time to get into conflict with anyone. If you have a case that you feel very strongly about, I would wait until your ruling planet starts to move forward after the 13th of November. Or I would give it a 3 degrees of separation from this square before you start raising any dust. However, this is the area where Saturn is going to give you rewards. If the conflict results in you losing your employment, perhaps that's part of the bigger plan. Perhaps Saturn wants you to go out there and start something on your own. Perhaps that's his reward, freedom from your current employment, if it's something that's been holding you back from your true path. Some Aries people might actually get a promotion before Saturn leaves this area. And if you've been wanting to change your marital status, some Aries people might change their marital status. The full moon conjunct Chiron is going to be in Aries, your sign. It's going to be in your first house. So this is where you're going to find a lot of culminations and endings, and also wounding or healing for some. This all depends on what kind of aspects you have. This all depends on what kind of aspects this full moon is making to all your other planets. If you've been working on a diet to improve your health, this is the time that you're going to see some results. And perhaps the weight loss will bring some healing to your health. And on the other hand, if you've had some issues that have been ongoing about yourself, this is the time that things are going to come to a culmination or an ending. And since the first house always involves how others see us, or the other on the descendant, the 7th house of partnerships, relationships, and committed relationships, this could possibly have to do with another person who you're involved with. Venus is currently transiting Leo, your 5th house. This is all looking like there's some love relationship going on, some tangles in a love affair. So if things are not going well at work or with your boss or you're standing in society, this lunation is suggesting that you turn to your creative talents or your creative projects, your children, or a romantic partner. Aries, leave those conflicts at work. They're only going to get you in trouble, or you're going to get fired. If that's what you're trying to do, perhaps you're going to quit your job voluntarily. But if it's not what you're trying to achieve, I suggest that you plan something which is going to bring you joy with your 5th house. Plan an outing, an adventure with your children or your romantic partner. This is the area where you will find healing from all those arguments and conflicts and resistance that you're meeting in the 10th house. You're not going to win this battle, Aries, so just take my advice and have some fun. Taurus Ascendant, Sun or Moon. Saturn is currently transiting your 9th house. this is where you're going to start feeling his direct motion. So if you've been working on some things for the last couple of years and have not seen any traction in the way that you would like to see, this is the time that you're going to see the light at the end of the tunnel. Perhaps you've been working on a novel. This is the time that you're going to be able to publish your novel. And if you've had challenges in education, or if you are a teacher and work in the education system, I'm sure you've been meeting with a lot of challenges. Saturn is going to start paving the way so that things become a lot more clear. Unfortunately, he's in square with Mars, who's transiting your 12th house. The full moon is conjunct Chiron, the wounded healer, who is also transiting your 12th house of Aries. This full moon is either going to wound you or heal you. It all depends on the aspects this full moon is making in your natal chart, and also how your own Chiron is aspected. A full moon in the 12th house is never comfortable, and then a full moon conjunct Chiron can make you very emotional, can make you feel very emotional and wounded. So if you've had some ongoing conflicts, perhaps in a foreign land, or something to do with your self-sabotaging habits that landed you in trouble in the 9th house of law, this is the time things are going to come to a head. This is the time when you're either going to be healed or you're going to be wounded. The 12th house is the hidden house. This is where most people self-sabotage. This is the house also of our hidden enemies. So with the full moon in the 12th house, your hidden enemy may show themselves. And if you do get into conflict with your hidden enemy, perhaps in a foreign land, you're going to land into trouble with the authorities. And unfortunately, at this time, the authorities, who is Saturn, backed by Jupiter and Pluto, are highly powerful at this time. So whatever it is that you have going on in your hidden house and your legal house, I suggest you leave this conflict for a little bit later, when Mars is moving direct, and best of all for you Taurus, when Mars is in your first house, which is going to be sometime after January 6th. So you have a lot going on in these two areas. Your ruling planet Venus is currently transiting the sign of Leo. Leo is your 4th house. This is where you're going to find some healing at this time. When Venus transits the 4th house, it promises good times in the home, good relationships with the family, with your mother. Generally, love in the home area. This actually could signify some lovemaking, because lovemaking is something we do behind closed doors. It's a 12th house activity. Get in touch with your romantic partner and have some intimate times, or have a house party with your family, or expend that energy decorating your own home. Gemini Ascendant, Sun or Moon. Saturn is going to be moving direct in your 8th house. This is the area where you're going to start feeling some forward movement. If things have been stuck, perhaps in you negotiating a mortgage or some type of loan, it's possible that you met some challenges in an intimate relationship or with intimacy. This is the time that you're going to start seeing some kind of light at the end of the tunnel. Saturn still has time to deliver his rewards. He's moving out of Capricorn in December. So at this moment, unfortunately, he's involved in a conflict with Mars, who is transiting your 11th house of hopes, dreams, and wishes. It is also the house of the groups that we belong to. The full moon conjunct Chiron in Aries is actually also in your 11th house. This conflict could be between your intimate relationship and your friends. It could also have to do with you financing a project that you're working on in a group that you belong to. Mercury, your ruling planet, is currently transiting Scorpio along with Juno. So you are thinking about contracts and agreements. So if you're finding a lot of conflict and challenges in acquiring a loan or a mortgage at this time, if things are not quite going your way, this is not the time for you to raise any dust and start a conflict with anyone in the 8th house, because at this time, unfortunately, they are more powerful than whatever it is that you have going on with your groups with the groups that you belong to, or with your friends. So if you would like to keep this intimate relationship and keep that mortgage or loan, I suggest that you take a back seat and let this energy dissipate. Wait until Mars is 3 degrees away from this square before you start making any arguments. Or better still, wait for Mars to start moving direct. He is going to be moving in direct motion on the 13th of November. Venus is currently transiting your 3rd house of neighbors, siblings, your immediate environment, your learning skills and communication. So retrograde Mars transiting your 11th house is in trine with Venus transiting your 3rd house. This is suggesting that you find healing through your siblings or your neighborhood, or through loving communication. So perhaps you could have a get together with your friends and your siblings and your neighbor. You may find some joy through this area. Or perhaps you could do some journaling and find healing that way. Or you could find healing conversation with a friend or a sibling or someone that you trust. Cancer Ascendant, Sun or Moon. Saturn is currently transiting your 7th house. This is an angle house, the descendant. This is the area that rules over marriage, our committed relationships, and other types of partnerships. So if things have not been working quite to your advantage in this area, this is the time that you're going to start feeling some forward movement. If you've worked hard in this area, Saturn is probably going to reward you with a lasting marriage or a lasting partnership before he leaves this house. Unfortunately, at this time, you still have some issues to iron out because Saturn is in conflict with Mars, who's moving retrograde at this time. So essentially, this makes your partner, the other person in the relationship, more powerful than you are. So I would not try to initiate any type of conflict or argument at this time. You are going to lose. And if you've had an ongoing conflict and this marriage or partnership is heading towards a divorce or dissolution, I would not be the one to initiate any legal action at this time, because whoever initiates any legal action or conflict against the other person during a Mars retrograde always loses the battle. The full moon in Aries is conjunct Chiron, the wounded healer. This is the area where you're going to have culminations, endings, and perhaps there'll be some wounding or healing for some, all depending on the aspects in your own natal chart. Perhaps there is an ongoing conflict with an authority figure. This is when this ongoing conflict is going to come to a head. There will be an ending or a culmination. If things cannot be resolved in this area, this is the time perhaps that some people might quit their job, and for some this is the time that they might actually be let go. So whatever situation has been ongoing in your 10th house is going to come to a head at this time. Mars transiting the 10th house could make you very ambitious and aggressive. So if you've been very aggressive at work, that could bring conflicts in your work area. Well, for some people, the culmination could be a promotion. It all just depends on what aspects you have in your natal chart. Unfortunately, Cancer has been hit hard. They've been having conflicts from all sides. There's been a square from the 10th house to the 7th house, and a square from the 7th house to the 4th house at some point. All this energy is now coming to a head. This is probably the worst it's going to be for all cardinal signs. This whole transit of the sun in Libra. Things are going to get much better once the sun moves into the sign of Sagittarius. Venus is currently transiting the sign of Leo in your 2nd house. Venus is in trine with Mars. So there is some light. So there is some healing there. In the 2nd house is a lovely transit. It can help you earn a lot more money. So perhaps you have a lot more money to spend money on. So perhaps you have more funds to spend on the family that you've created. The 2nd house is also the house that rules over the family that we create, i.e. the family, i.e. friends that we've had for a long time that we end up calling family, or it could be the family that you create with a marriage partner. So if I were you, I would probably go shopping and have a good time with the people that I call family. This is where you're going to find healing. Avoid getting into conflicts at work or with your committed relationships. You're not going to win this argument at this time. Leo Ascendant, Sun or Moon. Saturn is going to start moving direct in your 6th house. This is where you're going to start feeling some kind of blessing. The 6th house is the area of our work, our daily routine, and our known enemies. So if you've been meeting with conflicts and resistance with your co-workers, this is the time that you're going to start seeing some type of resolution. And if you've had an ongoing conflict with a known enemy, perhaps you were in a lawsuit or in court for some other reason, this is the time when you're going to see some light at the end of the tunnel. Or for some, if you've been battling some type of illness, this is the time that you're probably going to get on the proper medication that is going to give you some healing. However, before all these good things start to happen, Mars and Saturn are involved in a conflict. So this is going to bring some challenges and restrictions in these two areas. The full moon in Aries is in your 9th house. This full moon is conjunct Chiron, the wounded healer. This full moon is going to bring culminations and ending. It could also bring wounding or healing for some, all depending on how this full moon aspects other planets in your natal horoscope. A full moon in the 9th house could bring a culmination to an ongoing lawsuit, or if you were writing a book, this is the time that you're probably going to have this book published. Or if you're finding some challenges in the area of teaching or higher education, this is the time that you're going to find some type of ending or culmination. So looking at the houses where there's conflict, you have a conflict. Mars is in the 9th house. The house is a legal house. It's also a house of our higher belief system. And it's in conflict with it's in conflict with the house of, it's in conflict with the 6th house, the house of what we do every day, our daily routine, our work, and our known enemies. So perhaps you're facing some legal challenges and you're in court with a known enemy. This is not the time to push issues. Saturn works very hard when he's in the 6th house. Essentially, your known enemy is very powerful at this time. Saturn is moving direct, which makes him very powerful in the 6th house. He is ready to fight and conquer all, and he has the backing of 2 other very powerful planets. Jupiter, who is also moving forward, and Jupiter also rules over the 9th house. So this is a challenging and complex situation. Mars is moving retrograde, so essentially that makes him not very powerful against all the forces in the 6th house. So if there's anything going on between these houses, this is not the time to push the issue. You're going to lose this battle. I would wait for Mars to move 3 degrees away from this square, or if you have patience, wait until Mars starts moving direct on the 13th of November before you start raising dust in this area. Venus is currently transiting your house, your 1st house. Venus conjunct this ascendant tends to make you very attractive to others. So perhaps this is the time to just go out there and find a romantic partner. Venus is in exact trine with Mars, who's transiting your 9th house. This is the area where you're going to find some healing or resolution at this lunation. So I would go out and enjoy myself. Find something that you enjoy doing. Find a hobby that you actually enjoy. Go out with a foreigner. The 9th house is trine the 2nd house. This is a lovely aspect, and this is where you can find some joy. So go ahead and enjoy yourself, Leo. Forget about the problems that you have going on at work. Forget about your legal problems. These things are going to sort themselves out later. This is not the time for you to try and tackle them unless you're up for a losing battle. Virgo Ascendant, Sun or Moon. Saturn is transiting your 5th house. This is the area where you've been working hard and trying to accomplish something. This is the area you're going to start feeling some traction. There will be some forward movement, and before Saturn leaves this house, he's probably going to leave you a gift for all the hard work that you've done in this house. However, he is in conflict with Mars at this time, and Saturn is very powerful in this area because he has the backing of Jupiter and Pluto. The full moon is in Aries conjunct Chiron. This full moon is in your 8th house. This is the area where you're going to have endings and culminations. It is also the area where perhaps you might find wounding or healing. If you had applied for a mortgage or some type of loan, this is the time you'll probably get approved, or you have some type of culmination in this area. And if you had some ongoing issues with intimacy, or if you had some ongoing issues with an intimate partner, or something to do with other people's money, this is the time when everything is going to come to an ending or a culmination. Unfortunately, the 8th house is also the house of hidden issues and our secrets. So let's say perhaps you had an ongoing hidden romantic affair with somebody else. This is probably the time that your lover in the 5th house finds out about this relationship, and there will be a conflict between the house of intimacy and the house of romantic relationships. I don't know what you have going on in that area, but obviously there is something that's going to come to a head at this full moon. Venus is currently transiting Leo, your hidden house, your 12th house. Fortunately, Venus doesn't mind being in this hidden area. You could find some joy and happiness and healing through some type of sexual activity, because Mars is in exact trine with Venus at this lunation. Mars is masculine energy, Venus is feminine energy, which is in the hidden house of hidden pleasures. It is also the house of our hidden enemies. So perhaps this is the time you could make peace with a hidden enemy. Unfortunately for some people, if you have some self-sabotaging habits, you might end up trying to overindulge in your self-sabotaging habits. You might actually have a good time, just please do not overindulge. Masculine energy and feminine energy are in agreement. This whole transit seems to be very passionate and hot for you, Virgo. So if I were you, I would postpone the arguments and conflicts for another time, because there's no way that you're going to win this conflict at this time. Wait for Mars to start moving forward around the 13th of November. That would be a better time for you to address whatever issues that you have going on. Libra Ascendant, Sun or Moon. Saturn is currently transiting the sign of Capricorn, which is your 4th house. This is where you're going to find some rewards, or you're going to start seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. If you've been working on some issues, if you've had some ongoing issues with your home or your family, or perhaps your mother, this is probably the time that you're going to start seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. Saturn is probably going to give you a gift at the end of this transit. If you've been looking for a house to buy, you'll probably find the house of your dreams by the end of this transit. The full moon is in Aries, your 7th house. This full moon is conjunct Chiron, the wounded healer. This is where you're going to find endings and culminations. And perhaps for some, there will be some sort of healing or wounding. It all depends on the aspects that you have in your natal horoscope. All the cardinal signs have been experiencing some challenges over the last few months. Things are probably going to get better once the sun moves into Scorpio. Your ruling planet is currently transiting the sign of Leo in your 11th house. So your ruling planet is in trine with the planet that rules your 7th house, where you're going to find some type of peace. your ruling planet is in trine with the planet that rules your descendant, this is time for you to definitely smooth things out with your lover or your romantic this is definitely a time for you to smooth things out in your marriage, with your lover, or your committed partnerships and relationships. This is where you're going to find some type of healing. Since your ruling planet is transiting your 11th house of friendships, hopes, dreams, and wishes, perhaps this is the time that you invite some friends over and hopefully they'll get along with your romantic partner or your other partnerships. This aspect is signaling that there is some healing with your marriage or your committed relationships. So perhaps you've had an ongoing argument with your relationship partners, your marriage partner, your committed partnerships, and your mother, or something to do with your home area. This is not the time for you to have this conflict. You're not going to win this argument at all. If there has been an ongoing conflict, say between your mother and your husband or wife, your mother is going to win this argument. The person in the 4th house is very powerful at this time. They have Saturn in his own house, moving stationary direct, and Saturn has backing of Jupiter and Pluto at this time. So your partner is not going to win this argument. So I would suggest you take your partner and go out with your friends and have a good time that way. Scorpio Ascendant, Sun or Moon. I totally forgot to do the reading for Scorpio Ascendant for the Virgo new moon. I'm a Scorpio rising myself, so perhaps I don't really enjoy talking about myself, and I have to remind myself that I'm actually talking about other Scorpio risings, Sun or Moon. However, just a brief synopsis. The last new moon was in Virgo in our 11th house, the house of our hopes, dreams, and wishes. It is also the house of the groups that we belong to and our friends. So perhaps you had a new beginning in that area. A new moon in the 11th house could make you have new hopes, dreams, and wishes. You could have had new beginnings or a new direction with your friends, groups, and the groups that you belong to. From what I remember, that full moon was actually a very good moon for Scorpio rising. It was in sextile with our ascendant and in trine with all the energies in the Capricorn stellium, and particularly in trine with our ruling planet Pluto. So this new moon also had influence over the 2nd house. The 2nd house has everything to do with our earning ability. So perhaps something new is going to be started in that area. If you have any planets in Taurus, natal planets around the degree of the new moon, which I believe was at 25 degrees, then you had a perfect grand earth trine. When you have a perfect grand earth trine in your natal chart, it signifies that your new beginning is going to bring something that is solid and something that is going to stick around. This new moon will bring, that new moon probably brought something which has a staying power. And if you don't have anything at 25 degrees of Taurus, we still had Uranus at around 10 degrees, which still formed a loose grand earth trine. That new moon was very positive for us Scorpio risings, and I promise not to forget us. So moving on to where Saturn is currently transiting. Saturn is currently transiting in the sign of Capricorn, where Pluto, our ruling planet, is still retrograde and is going to go forward on the 4th of October. So this is another thing to look forward to. And then we also have Jupiter transiting Capricorn, who also started moving forward. So perhaps the karmic rewards and blessings are going to start showing up for us when Saturn opens the door and starts moving forward. Saturn moving direct in the 3rd house. The 3rd house rules over our immediate environment. It rules over siblings, our neighbors, the efforts that we put in initiating anything, our learned skills, our basic education, writing, and communication. So if you've been having any challenges like me stuttering all over the place like this, This is the time that you're going to start moving forward. As a matter of fact, for me personally, I feel I'm able to have a better flow in communication with my videos than the time I started. So this is the third house is the house where we learn something new. I taught myself how to make YouTube videos through this transit of Saturn in the third house. So perhaps you've been working on a novel that you've been writing. This is the time that you're going to probably meet with the publisher and start seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, the book published. If you've been learning a foreign language or some other type of communication, this is the time that you're going to start feeling more confident and seeing the results of your studies. The full moon is going to be in your 6th house in Aries, conjunct Chiron, the wounded warrior. This is the area where we're going to see culminations and endings. It is also the area where we might experience wounding or healing. This all depends how this full moon aspects planets in your natal chart. So if you've been experiencing any challenges with your neighbors, your siblings, something to do with the work, something to do with what you do for work, the 6th house is also the house that rules over known enemies. So perhaps if you've had an ongoing conflict with a known enemy who is actually also very powerful, because Mars in the 6th house works very hard to defeat enemies. Fortunately, we have our ruling planet transiting the house of Capricorn. He is conjunct Saturn, the ruling planet of the house. This makes Saturn very, very powerful. Saturn is moving direct. He's in his own house and he has backing of our ruling planet against the other planet that rules us. Also, Mars also rules us, our modern ruler. This is very complicated, Scorpio. I really cannot place my finger on what could be going on, but whatever it is that's going on, it's going to be a very tough challenge. It's more like you're fighting yourself somehow. So perhaps you need to negotiate these houses and come to a workable resolution. Mars is in square with Saturn. Pluto is very close by in conjunction with Saturn. However, this argument is directly between Mars and Saturn. In this situation, Saturn is the more powerful. The house that you're visiting is more powerful than your other ruler. So I suggest you take a back seat and let these two tough it out. You'll be much more powerful when Pluto, your ruling planet, starts moving forward on the 4th of October, and also when your other ruling planet, Mars, starts moving forward on the 13th of November. You'll actually even be more powerful when the owner of the house, Saturn, leaves Capricorn on December 19th. So I suggest you chill and take a back seat and let things just resolve themselves. Let's look at where things are hopeful and where you can find some joy. Venus is currently transiting your 10th house. Venus is in Leo. When Venus is transiting the 10th house, all eyes are on you, Scorpio. So you're everybody's favorite at work. Everybody wants to work with you and hang out with you, and you're getting a lot of publicity. Venus is in exact trine with Mars, your other ruling planet. So they are having a harmonious aspect. This is male and female energy working together very well. So find some joy in this. Perhaps you have the privilege of a good working partnership with your boss and authority figure. Venus also rules your descendant. So that's you having a pleasant and harmonious relationship with your marriage partner, or people you're involved in a committed relationship or some type of partnerships. I would encourage you to find peace and joy in those type of relationships instead of arguing with your co-workers and your neighbors or your sibling. If you are actually in conflict with your co-workers, your authority figures or your boss is actually going to take your side because you have Venus in this area. So this is the point, this is the place where you can find some joy. Sagittarius Ascendant, Sun or Moon. Saturn is currently transiting your 2nd house. This is your area of earned money and your self-value and self-esteem. When Saturn transits the second house, it tends to restrict this area. So some of you may have lost employment, gained new employment. It's also possible that you're earning less money because Saturn restricts the money that you're able to earn when he's transiting the second house. But at the end of the transit, he'll put you in a better footing than you were when he first started cleaning up the second house. So this is the area that you're going to start seeing some light at the end of the tunnel when Saturn starts to move forward. Jupiter, your ruling planet, is already moving forward, and he's in sextile aspect with Neptune, who is currently transiting Pisces. So your ruling planet is essentially getting along with the other house, with the planet that rules the other house that you also co-rule. And the house that you're transiting, the owner of the house is finally starting to move forward. That makes you free and able to bless this house. At the end of this transit, you're probably going to get a nice reward for all your hard work from Saturn and your ruling planet Jupiter. And Pluto is also going to go forward on the 4th of October. So all systems go in your house of earned income. You'll probably start feeling a lot better about yourself, and your self-esteem is going to be in a better place. The full moon is in Aries, your 5th house. This full moon is conjunct Chiron. This is the area where you're going to see some culminations or endings, and perhaps wounding or healing. This all depends on the aspects in your natal horoscope. I suspect it's going to be healing because transiting Mars and Chiron are in sextile with your ascendant, sun or moon. This is a harmonious aspect. This aspect is going to facilitate some type of healing. The 5th house is the area of our creativity, our creative talents, our children, and our romantic relationships. This house is in conflict with your 2nd house. Mars is in retrograde motion, transiting your 5th house. Perhaps an old romantic relationship is going to be revived at this time. Yes, Mars retrograde would tend to bring up the males in our life, would tend to bring up relationships from the past. Mars can also make your children very rebellious and aggressive at this time. So your children could be demanding for you to pay for things that are not in agreement with your 2nd house because you've been having Saturn restricting your funds. So you may not have the funds to fund whatever it is that your children or your romantic relationship want for entertainment, or perhaps they want a vacation that you cannot afford. This time they're going to be very aggressive and pushy, but I have to say your 2nd house is going to stand firm. This is not the time to encourage this conflict between these two houses. Venus is currently transiting the sign of Leo, which is your 9th house. Your 9th house of higher belief system, the justice system, the legal system, teaching, and religion. Mars and Venus are forming a trine aspect, and this is the point where you can find joy. So perhaps you should sacrifice the money for a vacation. Take your children and your romantic lover for a vacation in a foreign country or somewhere which is really far away from your home. This is where you could somehow resolve this conflict instead of encourage it. If foreign travel is not possible at this time, perhaps you could go to some type of theme park or go and eat some foreign type of food or take out a foreign exotic type of food. I don't know how you can resolve this area, but because of the trines going on to your ascendant from the house that's in conflict with your 2nd house, there seems to be a money issue, a romantic affair issue going on, which I feel could actually be resolved. If there's no resolution, I suggest that you wait for Mars to move direct on the 13th of November. This is when you could possibly perhaps resolve this situation once and for all. Capricorn Ascendant, Sun or Moon. Well, your ruling planet Saturn is finally moving direct. This is all about you. Ascendant is the first house. It is an angle house. So when your ruling planet starts moving direct, you're definitely going to feel this transit. If you've been meeting blockages and resistance in some of the plans you wanted to implement, this is the time that you're going to see that things are going to start moving your way. Capricorn, you are very powerful at this time. Even though you are meeting conflict with Mars, who's transiting your fourth house. And whenever Mars transits the fourth house, it's another angle house. This is a square aspect. We're definitely going to feel his energy in the fourth house. Mars is very aggressive in the fourth house and tends to start fights with family members or perhaps with your mother. In other instances, you could have renovations going on in your house at this time. The good news is that whatever conflict that you have going on in the fourth house with perhaps your family, or you're struggling with your own deep resentments and emotions, you are more powerful in this situation. So whoever comes at you or against you whoever comes against you from your fourth house area is going to lose this battle. And besides, you have Jupiter and Pluto backing whatever decision you make at this time. The full moon is in Aries. Aries is your fourth house. The full moon is conjunct Chiron. This is where you're going to have, this is the area where you're going to have endings and culminations, and perhaps some hurt feelings, some wounded feelings, or perhaps some healing. It looks like the conflict that's going on is unavoidable, and perhaps this is the time everything is going to come to a head, and whatever needs to be said and done is going to be done. Since you have the ruling and upper hand in this situation, things will definitely go your way. Mars is going to definitely put up a strong fight from your fourth house. Capricorn is a cardinal earth sign. All the other cardinal signs have been through a lot in the past few years. When the sun leaves Libra and goes into Scorpio, things are going to start moving a lot smoother for the cardinal signs. So you should be looking forward to that. Venus is currently transiting your 8th house. Your 8th house of other people's money, intimate relationships, inheritances, and our deep dark secrets. Venus is in trine with Mars, the person that you're having a conflict with, and Venus is the female energy. Venus is our feminine energy. Mars is our masculine energy. The masculine energy and the feminine energy are hooking up. So I suggest that since Venus is in your 8th house and it encourages intimate relationships, I would encourage you to do just that. Get intimate and forget all the quarrels for now. It's going to be a tough battle on both sides. Even if you win, you're not going to feel very good about winning this conflict. So try and make peace with the feminine and masculine energies in the 8th house and the 4th house. With Venus transiting the 8th house, she's probably smoothing over things with other people's money. So if you had applied for a loan or a mortgage, you're probably going to get that loan or mortgage. So perhaps you should throw a house party and appease everyone at home. Aquarius Ascendant, Sun or Moon. Saturn is currently transiting your 12th house. This is a hidden area. This is an area where we self-sabotage. This is the area of our hidden enemies and our past karma. This is not an easy house to deal with. This is the area also of our subconscious. So perhaps a lot of things have been going on. We can't forget that you've had Jupiter and Pluto going on there. So perhaps you've been going through some things by yourself, things that you've kept hidden from things that you've kept to yourself, hidden from everybody else. This is the time that you could start finding some resolution in this area. This is the time that you could get some healing and some conclusion, or settle arguments with enemies who have probably shown themselves at this time. Saturn has been in this area for a couple of years now. He's shown you all your weaknesses. He's shown you how you self-sabotage. He's shown you your hidden enemies. So perhaps this is the time that you will find some type of healing through spirituality or through therapy. The time that you're going to start seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, and the end of the tunnel is Saturn moving into your first house. When Saturn crosses the ascendant, we definitely begin anew, and our life takes on a brand new direction. So this is a transit that you should be looking forward to. Saturn is going to be moving into your sign around the 20th of December 2020. Whatever it is that you've been going through and suffering in silence, alone, by yourself, this is all about to end. The full moon is in Aries conjunct Chiron in your third house. This is where you're going to have endings and culminations. You're also going to perhaps experience some wounding or healing in this house. The third house is the house of our immediate environment, our siblings, and our neighbors. It is the house of basic learning, skills, and communication. If you've been writing a book, this is probably the time that you're going to finish writing this book and put it up for publishing. If you've been learning a new skill or a new language, this is the time that you're going to complete these studies. If you've had an ongoing conflict with a neighbor or a sibling, this is perhaps the time things are going to come to a head, and things are going to end, or you're going to find some type of healing. Before Saturn can start dishing out his rewards, he has to deal with Mars, who's currently transiting your third house. They are in an exact square at this time. Saturn is your ruling planet, so he's not going to damage his own house too much. He's going to be on your side. As a matter of fact, in this argument, Saturn is much more powerful than Mars. So you may have an aggressive way of communicating with your 12th house area, perhaps people in faraway lands or towards your open enemies. You are very strong at this time and could possibly defeat your hidden enemies at this time. This is perhaps a situation where you have an addiction. An addiction, of course, is a self-sabotaging habit, and most people hide their addictions. This is the time you could use the effort from the third house, the house of effort, to conquer the hidden enemy, which at this point is the addiction that Saturn has uncovered. So you could actually use this transit to your advantage. And if your neighbor or your sibling is arguing with you, unfortunately, they're not going to win this argument. You are going to win this argument. You may not feel so great about winning this argument. So if you can find a better or peaceful resolution, I would suggest you opt for that. So where can you find peace and healing from this situation? Venus is currently transiting the sign of Leo, and Leo is the descendant. That's your 7th house, the area of your marriage, your committed relationships, and partnerships. So perhaps you can find some healing with a partner from that area, with your husband, your committed partner. This is the area where you will find some happiness from all this conflict going on between your 12th house and your 3rd house. So I would suggest you arrange a romantic outing with your partner and avoid using aggressive speech towards your partner who has nothing to do with the situation that is ongoing between your 3rd house of communications, your 3rd house, and your 12th house. Keep your partner out of the drama, and remember that you have Mars transiting your 3rd house, which could make you have very aggressive speech. As long as you don't use this aggressive speech towards your romantic partner, you are not going to experience any conflict in this situation. Pisces Ascendant, Sun or Moon. Saturn is currently transiting your 11th house. This is the area where you're going to start feeling some kind of movement towards your rewards and your accomplishments. If the 11th house is the house of our wishes, dreams. The 11th house is the house of our hopes, wishes, and dreams. It is also the house of our friends and the groups that we belong to. The 11th house is the house where we receive the reward of all the work that we did in the 10th house. The 11th house is the house where we receive the rewards of all the hard work that we did in the 10th house. Saturn transiting the 11th house is usually a very positive and rewarding transit. So if you've been working hard for the past few years, this is the time when Saturn is going to bless you with an accomplishment towards your goal and a reward and perhaps a gift at the end of his transit. However, at this particular moment, he's in a square aspect with Mars. The full moon is conjunct Chiron in Aries, your second house. This is where you're going to experience endings, culminations, healing, or perhaps a wounding. The second house rules over things like our self-esteem, what we do to earn a living, our values, and the family that we create. Mars is currently transiting your second house. However, he is retrograde during this lunation. He's also in square aspect to Saturn, who's currently transiting the sign of Capricorn, which is his own house. He just recently turned direct, so he is very powerful, and he has backing from the other planets that are conjunct in his sign, Pluto and Jupiter. Saturn is super powerful at this time. There's no way Mars is going to win a battle against Saturn. So whatever it is that you have going on with perhaps your family and your friends, or your earned income and maybe funding a dream or a wish, which is in conflict at this time, 11th house is the house that's going to win this battle. If it's possible for you to avoid conflict at this time, it is highly advisable, because if it has anything to do with your earned income, it could be a situation where you lose a means of income because as a result of the conflict that you have in the groups that you belong to, or the conflict between your friends and money. We always look to Venus to find some type of healing or some type of joy. Venus is currently transiting the sign of Leo in your 6th house. Venus is in exact trine with Mars. Venus is feminine energy and Mars is a masculine energy. The feminine and the masculine energy are in a harmonious aspect. So if anything, you should be trying to get along with people who you are intimately involved with. Since things with your groups, friends, and your earned income or your family are in conflict, I suggest that you try and get along with your co-workers or your known enemies, because Venus is in this house and trying to smooth things over and make reconciliations where she can with co-workers if there were any conflicts there from before. So use this positive energy of Venus to smooth things out with your 6th house area. A positive aspect of Mars transiting the 2nd house is that he'll help you earn more money. The negative aspect of him transiting the 2nd house is he will also make you spend a lot of money. The negative aspect of him being retrograde is that he's probably going to bring up past bills or past issues that you have with your family. The positive aspect of having Venus transiting the 6th house is that work is actually going to be pleasant. Your relationships at work with your co-workers is going to be pleasant and can be smoothed over. The negative aspect of Venus transiting the 6th house is that it might, if you're on a diet, it's going to trash your diet. You might start having a sweet tooth, so stay away from the candy, stay away from the cake or the extra dessert. Actually, with the transits that you're having, with all the conflict and the stress that you might be going through, maybe you should have an extra dessert.